Hi, this is Chatterboxing. I'm Sean. I just wanted to make a quick video about this Dillian Whyte, Luis Ortiz, Derek Chisora situation that's sort of going on at the moment. Now I can start by saying that I would much prefer to watch Dillian Whyte against Luis Ortiz than a Derek Chisora rematch. Now don't get me wrong, the first fight was a classic. I'm sure the rematch would be very good as well, but I personally prefer to watch new fights rather than the rematches. Now, the Derek Chisora rematch can be made like in the future. It's a big domestic fight, two popular UK fighters, so it's not really going to go away. Luis Ortiz is much more interesting to me because I haven't seen it before. Dillian Whyte and Luis Ortiz are both like top 10 contenders. I mean, you could make a case for either of them being, top 5 contenders, I suppose, depending on who you talk to. But they're both up there. I think stylistically, it's a very interesting fight, and it's definitely one I'd like to see. Now, the problem as I see it, that I think might prevent this from happening, is that the Derek Chisora fight was already in negotiations. Like before, Luis Ortiz's name got mentioned and all that. Derek Chisora is also a client of Eddie Hearn, so Eddie Hearn has got a responsibility to make the fight happen for Derek Chisora as well as Dillian Whyte. So if it was only he was representing Dillian Whyte, then you'd think it'd be more chance of him, making this Luis Ortiz fight if people want to see it. So hardcore boxing definitely want to see it. Now, in terms of like your typical sort of casual sports fan in the UK, yeah, they're more like they'll know who Derek Chisora is. They'll be more interested in that. But I think most of the people who are real hardcore boxing fans, we want to see Dillian Whyte against Luis Ortiz. Now, Derek Chisora has reportedly been priced himself out, or they can't agree terms, depending on who you listen to. But as it stands, they haven't managed to make much progress, which to me is good. Hopefully that will continue and get Luis Ortiz in instead. He said that he's willing to come on the 22nd. Because obviously they were talking about it first on the December, on the Wilder Fury undercard. That was never going to happen. Dillian Whyte's now quite a big name. He just fought on pay-per-view, sell out the O2, big arena. Do you know what I mean? Making a lot of money. Now, the amount of money that Frank Warren and Lou DiBella, whoever's sort of organising that event, is not going to be able to give them the money that they make fighting in London. So that was never a realistic option. So I don't know what's his name, Jay Jimenez was talking about. It seemed a bit silly, really, his statement saying he didn't want it. He already made. I mean, he was manager. Do you know what I mean? What do you mean you didn't want? You didn't want him to come and fight in the UK for much more money on in the main event. I mean, just talking rubbishly. But Luis Ortiz is obviously up for fighting against Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte's a big name. Luis Ortiz, obviously, time is not on his side, so he's wanting to make these big fights. So it's quite a risky one for him. Obviously, he's knocked out. Not the last fight. He had like a tune-up fight against like a journeyman. So they're basically going in with Dillian Whyte now in London. It's fair play to him if he takes that fight. Dillian Whyte as well. Luis Ortiz is obviously very risky as well. I mean, we know he's old. We know he's like past his best, but he's still a very, very good fighter. Very, very skillful. So I really hope that they can make that fight happen. And fingers crossed that Chisora doesn't at the last minute agree to terms that he wasn't prepared to agree to before, and Eddie Hearn thinks, yeah, let's just make this in-house fight. I kind of get Chisora off my back because he's sort of hassling me for this fight. He would have been hassling for quite a long time. I've been talking about this rematch for ages. So hopefully there's just too much ego involved for those two to agree terms. We can get Luis Ortiz over because that's a great fight for both of them. There's a lot of obviously you've got Wilder and Joshua, who everyone sort of considers these two the top 2 at the moment for obvious reasons. Then you've got Tyson Fury, who's just come back. Obviously he was the man before, but he hasn't been around for a while. We all know about that. So he's kind of people will say he's just sort of below those two for that reason, but we don't really know. But you got people like Dillian Whyte, Luis Ortiz, who are there or thereabout. This is a perfect fight for both of them. Right now, in terms of how do I think it would go, it's a tough one because like, if you'd said to me like a couple of years ago, I would have definitely picked Ortiz to win. If you'd have said like before the Wilder fight, I probably would have picked Ortiz to win as well. But since then, he obviously got knocked out. He's another, I don't know how long, he's another year older, and he just showed that he couldn't really hack it physically for like against a top level opponent as the fight went on. I mean, I'm not sure what round he got stopped in, but he slowed down. You know what I mean? Against Wilder, now Wilder, obviously he's a harder puncher than Dillian Whyte, although Dillian Whyte's still a hard puncher, but he's not as physical. Do you know what I mean? He's not high volume. He's not pressuring you. He doesn't work the body. He's not like a big heavy lump like aggressive like Dillian Whyte. So I think fighting Dillian Whyte would take up more energy than fighting Deontay Wilder, and he couldn't handle it with Deontay Wilder. I mean, he kind of punched himself out, didn't he, in that round where he nearly stopped him. So I think against Dillian Whyte, I think if he didn't get him out of there early, which could well happen, then I don't think he'd be able to handle the pace. I think he's just too old, too past it, really, just physically. I don't think he can cut it with Dillian Whyte, the way he fights for 12 rounds. Now, I could definitely see Luis Ortiz taking Dillian Whyte out in the first 6 rounds. Very, very good counter puncher, very clever, pretty good puncher as well. I mean, he's not like a huge puncher, but he can hit you hard enough, and he's got good timing, good judgment of distance, good. I mean, quite slow feet, but efficient feet. He's definitely more skilled than Dillian Whyte. I mean, Dillian Whyte's skillful. Don't get me wrong. He's more skillful than Wilder, but he's not as skillful as Luis Ortiz. But I do think that the physical advantage, just being about at least 15 years younger, fresher. Dillian Whyte really is aggressive. He comes to win, and he'll put it on you. And he's tough as well. You're not just going to sort of hit him with a couple of punches and take him out. Luis Ortiz will have to work, but if he knocks him out, it will be impressive. He does sometimes lunge in a bit, Dillian Whyte, and that's the thing that he'll have to be careful of in this fight. But he has been improving, and I think he'd be very aware of that. I think he's got long arms as well, Dillian Whyte. What you need to do is work the body from early on and just sort of wear the old man out. And, but be careful of those counters in the first half of the fight. So it's a very, very good fight, and I'd love to see it. Just hopefully Derek Chisora doesn't, spoil the party by, coming in and signing the fight with Dillian Whyte. I mean, no disrespect to Chisora. Obviously, the first fight was great. He deserves a rematch based on how the first one went. He's been I've enjoyed watching his fights over the years. He's fought everybody, done it on the road. He's given us some great memories. So, like, fair play to. I'm not gonna. I'd like to see him get the opportunity, but right now I want to see him. I want to see Dillian Whyte against Luis Ortiz, and I'll pick Dillian Whyte to beat him. So yeah, if the fight does get made, look into it in more detail. But yeah, that's all I want to say. Let me know what you think about it. Thank you very much for watching.